Hey, listen to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MPR. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Skype we got Josh.
Hey.
Lots to talk about as the fallout from SummerSlam becomes clear. So we're going to be jumping around all of the brands just randomly, but let's start off with the Bloodline. Obviously, SummerSlam happened. We saw Roman Reigns defend his title against Jey, thanks to a little bit of an interference by Jimmy. We got a little explanation of motives this week on SmackDown.
And at least it's not the usual being jealous story.
Mm-hmm.
There's some semblance of making sense. Because, yeah, you wouldn't want your brother to become corrupted in the same way that your cousin has. Because they say absolute power corrupts absolutely. So, yeah, it makes total sense. It also makes sense that Jey would not accept it. However, they did surprise us with adding yet another layer with having Jey straight up quit. Not the Bloodline, not SmackDown, but the entire WWE.
Yeah, it was... I don't think any of us had that on our bingo card coming out of this one.
No.
I think, the path ahead might still be as we'd thought leading into this, but yeah, we definitely turned down a road I wasn't expecting. And I just hope this sticks for a little while, We've had a few walking outs before that have lasted a week, so yeah. Give them some time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do still want to see him showing up at, sitting in the crowd or something, being a fan, but not interacting with anything. Just so that you still don't forget him. But this is definitely a means to an element of, all right, we don't want to do it now. We want to do it later when it can be a bigger match. Let's have Jey off TV for a little while. And by the way, Jey is over as heck too.
The crowd were loving him as he walked out.
Yeah, so I will say I'm fine with it. It's a direction that, as you said, we weren't expecting. But I think in the end, as part of the overall story, I think it's going to be better than what we were expecting. I know we were kind of thinking there'd be a Four Corners match for the title at Survivor Series. That might not happen. Thanks to a certain pamphlet, another match might not happen in next month. So, it's fine. We will take Jey off TV, at least directly. Maybe having him show up or have them doing like Twitter posts and stuff that show where he is and things. Just so people don't forget about Jey.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jey can get some time off because God knows he probably needs it. He's been working constantly for 4 years. And it just becomes an even better storyline than we were already experiencing.
Yeah, I think it feeds really well into Jimmy's stated motive, right? Because Jimmy's sitting there and he's going I didn't want you to turn into him. What about us? I did it for your betterment. And there was this whole us piece said a fair bit. And now with Jey walking out, Jimmy's still alone. He may have had good intentions with his interfering in the match, but his outcome is still the same. He's sitting alone with a big maniacal person. The only difference is that it's not Jey that's corrupted. And so I would love to see us explore that in the coming weeks as well. Jimmy coming to terms with the fact that his brother walked out, and let's keep playing it like he may never come back. We all know storyline wise he'll come back later down the line, but the character of Jimmy doesn't have to think that, and so this could be a real dark piece if we focus on telling the story now from Jimmy's perspective, sorry. And yeah, we've got options for where the story goes.
And this might also help with developing who Jimmy is as an individual. Because up to this point, Jimmy has always been the other Uso. He's never had an opportunity to be on his own. Whereas Jey did solely because Jimmy was hurt.
Yeah.
But, so that started it. And then, of course, then he became the right-hand man of Roman and all that before Jimmy was finally cleared. But so this is an element, in a chance for him to see what he can do on his own.
Main event Jimmy.
Yeah. So it's another thing, another element. If we can get 2 stars out of the Usos, stars out of the Usos instead of just 1, that's better for the business in general. Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see. I think the end point or the destination of this journey is still some form of Jimmy and Jey going head to head, but I don't know. It's definitely muddying the waters for sure. And talking about waters being muddied, Edge is coming up to his 25th anniversary. He's challenged Sheamus to a lovely match, and rumors are swirling if that one might be it.
It would make sense. That is basically his hometown. It is where he attended his first WWE show back at WrestleMania 6. And honestly, I think all things considered, especially what we heard, what he was wanting for this run, I think it was a perfect way for him to put people over this time. And I think Sheamus might be the genuinely best person to have that last match with. It is going to be it's going to be a Hall of Famer and a future Hall of Famer in the ring. I think anybody who says Sheamus is not a future Hall of Fame is not a fan, because Sheamus is absolutely a future Hall of Famer. He's done it all in the business except win the Intercontinental title. And he's been there 14 years now, almost 15. And I think this is a cherry on top of his career. He'll gladly do the honors for Edge in his final match, if it does end up being his final match. And I think he'll do everything within his power to make it a banger.
Yeah, obviously, I think people who listen to this show know by now I'm quite a big Sheamus fan. And so this match, does appeal to me quite a bit. It is a couple of my favorites going head to head. Will it be Edge's final? Will it not be Edge's final? Look, we wait, 3 days, and we're probably going to get that answer. And so I'm not going to sit around and speculate too hard about that one. We'll talk about it next week when it does or doesn't happen. But yeah, I do think Edge and Sheamus will put on a good match, whether it be a sunset ride afterwards or whether it be spun off into something more. We'll have to wait and see with these two. Yeah, we'll talk about this part. It's a lot of SmackDown, but we'll make the entrance theme make sense. We had this big tournament to crown a number 1 contender for the United States Championship. Santos Escobar won it after a grand final defeating Rey Mysterio, and then because Rey was injured, now Santos gets injured by Austin Theory just before the match, and Rey jumps in, takes the shot, and ends up walking out with the United States title. That was a mouthful. I fumbled over that.
Yeah, that was a lot to say. That this is a interesting story, because there is definitely an element here that feels one out of place, because again, the whole tournament was to set up a number 1 contender, and the number 1 contender that won the tournament didn't even get the match.
Yeah.
So, did we change Escobar's name to Mustafa Ali all of a sudden? If that's a reference, if you don't get it, you haven't been watching NXT. That's
because he got screwed by a Mysterio stealing his number 1 contendership.
Yeah. So this is an interesting. I think this is going to be a heel turn for the LWO, and I think it's going to be because of jealousy over Ray basically just leapfrogging Santos Escobar and taking his opportunity away from him.
Mm-hmm.
It's a simple story and something that can be milked for a few weeks before appropriately paying it off, but it could be something that stratifies Escobar, sends him into the stratosphere with the taking the title from Ray. Plus, there's also the possibility of doing a match between Ray and Dom again, because Ray is the champion of the United States, but Dominic is the champion of all of North America. So technically, he should be above him, because he's also champion of Canada and Mexico.
I'm sure Dom will love to rub that in his face.
Yeah, and they've already been doing that on Twitter.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of those situations where we're not sure where they're going with this, but it's more than like going to be resulting in Escobar versus Mysterio.
Yeah, I definitely see that as the way it's being headed as well, right? Like, we had the grand finals and we have this piece. The union was more of convenience than it was necessarily like a strong, forged in blood kind of union. So I could definitely see the LWO fracturing here. Ray versus Santos should be a banger. As you say, Santos should get the title out of this feud. I wouldn't be a massive fan of this whole story being written and then Santos just going under at the end. But, you know, there's been a few that have turned me around on what I thought would be a bad outcome for a feud, so I'll sit back in my chair and let the story unfold, but I do think this is a crowning for Santos Escobar, pulling him up out of the doldrums, because, you know, if Santos won the US title from Austin Theory, we'd be going like, woo, he's got the US title, but it wouldn't mean as much as Santos winning the US title from Rey Mysterio. There's definitely a difference there in terms of the esteem that it gets Santos and in terms of the highness up the card that he gets pushed. Because as much as Austin Theory was doing things, he's been not doing a lot of things lately. And a title change was a little bit overdue anyway.
Yeah. There's also the whole thing that WWE has been begging for a Latino wrestler to take Ray's spot as the head of the table for the Latinos. Who's to say it isn't supposed to be Sando Escobar? Then again, it could also be Damian Priest. There are options for that, but it would definitely be something that could possibly elevate his stature, not just in the company, but towards those demographics, the Latin America and Spanish and all that.
Yeah, it'll be good to see where Santos goes from here. Santos is a great wrestler, so I'll trust him to put on a good feud, and hopefully we see gold around his waist in a couple months. But our entrance theme this week is celebrating our brand new United States champion, even if it was stolen. It is none other than Rey Mysterio's theme. And you're back to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and NPR. I'm Grady, he's Josh. I've had enough of SmackDown. We've talked about it for too long. You know, we've talked about the Bloodline imploding. We've talked about the LWO potentially imploding. I want to talk about something different. Let's talk about the Judgment Day potentially imploding.
I knew that was coming. Yeah, this was interesting. Obviously, there were the issues at SummerSlam. Balor doesn't fully trust Damian Priest. Damian Priest is trying his hardest to help. But he does have that briefcase that does muddy the waters, a phrase you used earlier. And then you have JD McDonald just being seemingly unofficially added to the group, but not officially, because they definitely are leaving it to, this is just Finn's friend at the moment. And it's very likely that Finn's friend ends up attacking Finn and taking his spot in the faction. I am super excited about this, or they could just completely make up, and Finn and Finn's friend go and take the tag titles.
Yeah.
And then eventually you end up with Damian Priest with the women's world title. And you have Judgment Day with all the gold on Raw.
Yeah, it's an interesting one here, right? Because it reminds me almost of, like, playground politics. You've got your, like, group of friends, and then you have your other friend that's not a part of the group. And he just, like, kind of thinks he is a part of the group. But then you see, you know, at the start of the show where Sami Zayn's attacking JD, and the group don't really care. They don't really interfere at all. But when push comes to shove, that one guy who is his friend, Finn Balor, comes on out and, you know, is there, and he's still friends with him. So Finn's going to have to choose at some point, seemingly. Does he side with his best friend JD or his group, the Judgment Day? Or as you say, does JD flip the script and go against him? There's a few different combustible elements at the moment with regards to the Judgment Day, but much like how the Bloodline is the story on SmackDown, the Judgment Day really are the pushing forward the story on Raw. They're feuding with Cody, they're feuding with Seth, they're feuding with one half of the tag team champions. They're just sort of that heel faction running wild on Raw. And talking about Seth Rollins, he's locked in. It will be Rollins versus Nakamura.
Yeah, it's definitely what we saw coming. It's interesting. I will have to say this. I have been extremely negative in the past about Nakamura and his ability to get over in the US market because he doesn't fully speak English. I like the idea of him cutting promos in Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to understand it, but I like the idea of it. And when I saw the translation of it, I'm like, yeah, makes sense. Well, I still don't see him winning the title. As much as we have been saying, he needs a bone thrown his way. This isn't that bone, though.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, right? Seth Rollins holding the title at the moment, his stock just a little bit higher than Nakamura's, and with the Intercontinental belt locked up with Gunther, there's not really many bones for Nakamura to get. But, you know, Seth and Nakamura will put on classic matches anyway, so they don't necessarily need the belt to change hands, to add any elements to that. They'll put on a great match.
And it's also always possible that this is an element that could get Damian Priest the belt. Think about it. After a grueling physical match with the King of Strong Style, you have a ticked off Nakamura, Kinshasa, Seth Rollins, and then Damian Priest comes out with his briefcase, cashes in, and wins the title.
Why not?
Would it not make sense?
No. We can never, from now on out, we can never forget that Damian Priest has that briefcase, right? And I think it is going to come when we least expect it. The Io Sky one, you know, we didn't really think it was going to happen that night necessarily. We could tell as the match developed, but I feel like Damian Priest may end up blindsiding us after all these false cash-ins around the place. And maybe we'll see. I do want to talk at least a little bit about NXT before we run out of time. We had a number one contendership match, and as is tradition, when you lose the NXT North American Championship, you earn yourself a number one contendership against the NXT Championship.
Yeah, it should be an interesting and pretty good match. It is going to be interesting to see how Carmella Hayes handles this, with this being his first title defense without his buddy.
Mm.
Remember, Trick Williams is not in his corner anymore because he has to be his own man.
Yeah. I don't think he'll lose the first time, but I do think we'll start to see the effects on Carmelo of not having his hype man.
Yeah. So yeah, I would not be surprised if Wesley walks out with the title. I honestly won't.
Okay.
I think WWE is incredibly high on Wesley. He's definitely made chicken salad out of some nasty chicken crap. That's for sure. Because nobody remembers that he used to tag team with a certain person anymore. So I think he's fantastic, and I think I could easily see Carmelo maybe moving on to the main roster after crowning Wesley as the heir apparent.
Yeah, we got to see, I guess, where everything's going. We keep saying, maybe Braun will go up, maybe Carmelo will go up. Post-draft, we haven't really had a lot of movement with the NXT superstars heading up to the main roster. And even a lot of the superstars who did get drafted haven't seen a whole lot of movement out of them either. They've either just silently moved back to NXT or floated around in the ether. And so NXT call-ups not doing the most right now.
Or it could also be a situation where that maybe you remember when we were getting to the point of Melo versus Braun. They had that one match that resulted in a Waller versus Breaker had that one match that resulted in a no contest with the ring breaking. What if there's a no contest in this match? And that's what gives them, has them do it at the special, the premium live event, No Mercy, rather than just doing the title switch on a random special quotation marks NXT on Tuesday.
Yeah, I don't think, if Wesley doesn't capture the title, I don't think this will be his only shot at it. I do think there'll be a couple of shots for him. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this feud does get stretched out a little bit. We saw it being built the second that Wes lost his championship to Dom. He was already there, hot on Carmelo's heels, pushing for a title shot. So yeah, I could see him going for a second shot, a third shot, probably not a fourth shot. 4 might be too many. But yeah, I don't think we'll be one and done with these guys.
Yeah. Just a reminder, Melo only needs one shot. Because he don't miss.
Wow. I feel the need to cut that. But, yeah. You've thrown me for a loop here, man. Women's tag titles. I'm a default. They're the most cursed items in all of the WWE. They got themselves a new haft holder.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wasn't on my bingo card. I did not have Pep and Nevin as the new women's tag team champion. So that's something different.
We got to start making some better bingo cards.
Yeah. I kind of like it because it does give Pippin something to do, and that title inherited the curse that used to plague the Intercontinental Championship. Remember how every single month it seemed like somebody would win the title, and then the next month they'd be crowning a new one because the previous champion got hurt.
Yeah, it was really rough back then, and it's being really rough right now. It's obviously just, coincidence with people getting injured, but at some point you gotta wonder if some evil person has placed a curse on these titles. Just make that a storyline. Why not? You've got 2 witches already floating around who lost the titles.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that could be done. I think I would have liked to have gone a different route and have them Green turn the title into a mid-card title and have her defend it as a solo person and get that title over. That way, it gets rid of the tag team titles, which we don't really need. and it still gives them to do something mid-card, and it's something that would be believable with the Karen type character that Chelsea has.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good idea, and I think it would have worked well. We've been saying for a while, mid-card titles, not tag titles. Who knows? Could be a while away before we get that. Alrighty, well, it looks like we have run out of time. Plenty more to get to next week, though. The world of wrestling continues to roll on, but that is all we have time for this week. It's been great talking to you.
Bye.
You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/wrestling R&D up, or our Twitter page, twitter.com/wrestling RND up, or our YouTube page, youtube.com/wrestling RND up. And we will catch you next week.